listening to the Agent Survival Guide podcast, a podcast for today's insurance agents. Informing, educating, empowering, improving the way you do business in an industry that's anything but static. In today's episode, content marketing is a great strategy for your insurance business. Full stop. With it, you can reach new leads while actively working to retain your existing clients. And that's because we put the focus on educating rather than anything involving sales. It's all about delivering information, not about what we get out of it. When done correctly, as I mentioned, it is a great strategy. But the thing that gets in the way most often is the content piece. Content marketing takes time. Insurance-related content marketing takes a little more time. And compliant insurance-related content marketing? Well, when you're selling and trying to run your business, it's likely not something you have time for. That's one of the many reasons why the team at Ritter Insurance Marketing, the FMO that powers this podcast, created the content library. We love creating solutions that give time back to our agents. And this is one that you are going to want to take advantage of. When this agent resource launched, Lisa Lynch and Jeff Snyder joined me to chat about the content library. Here's our conversation.
I'm Lisa Lynch. I'm the marketing director here at Ritter Insurance Marketing. I've been with Ritter for going on about 15 and a half years now.
I'm Jeff Snyder. I am the senior content marketer at Ritter. I started as one of the copywriters, and I've been here since 2017.
I will pause here before we get too much further into the actual content library so that, Lisa, you can explain a little bit about what is content marketing for some of the people who might just be getting started out with their marketing efforts, to kind of explain just the concept of it.
So content marketing is exactly what it sounds like. It's utilizing content to market yourself or market an idea. Mm-hmm. It's important to do so you're not constantly always selling. And you really want to take part in it or utilize content marketing because it helps build your reputation within the community, within the industry, as well as hitting your clients or hitting, in our case, agents where they're at. So you want to use the content as a way to help answer questions. When you have somebody searching online, you want your material to be showing. So content marketing is a way to, like I said, build your reputation, show that you're an industry leader. And within that content, then there's a lot of other things that go on with that. You're also providing other backlinks or links to other articles within that content.
So much of content marketing is about providing value to your consumers. If you're an agent, for us, it's providing value to our agents. Jeff, why do we need something like the content library?
So whenever I'm asked this kind of question, I always come back to one story. And it was actually when you and I were at the Philadelphia Summit, and we were sitting at the marketing table and just talking to agents kind of coming through. And one of the questions that you and I, over the course of the day, just asked a ton of agents was, how are you planning on marketing yourself this year? And, you know, we occasionally get, I'm looking to do this, or I'm talking to a newspaper, or I'm going to send out Slim Jims or flyers. But the most common response that we heard was, I'm not going to market myself this year. And we would always say the same thing, which was, why not? And they would say, I don't even know where to start.
Right.
And it's such a shame because with that many agents not knowing where to start marketing themselves, you're really missing out on a key element of sales, basically.
Absolutely.
And even just getting your name out there. You're totally relying on word of mouth, and you might be an amazing agent, but you're not going to get beyond a specific group.
Right.
So right now, the content library is a place to start. Whether that's going to be informing them strictly of Medicare, which we do have information about Medicare, but informing them about stuff that has nothing to do with Medicare. And we'll get more into what's on there and what's coming later, but we have a ton of content.
So I like what you mentioned there about marketing and the fact that so many agents do come to us and say, I don't even know where to start. And there are a lot of different ways you can do marketing. There are a lot of different types of marketing. Lisa, why content marketing? Why is that the one that we're trying to kind of target here? And how does it fit into the mix with the other types of marketing efforts?
So I'm a huge fan of content marketing. I think that that's where you're going to get your strongest leads. I feel that that's where you provide the best value from a marketing effort standpoint. It's a great way to interject yourself into other places, whether it's online, with social, or whether it's, your website. But content marketing is a passive way of marketing. It's not so much in your face. It's one of the cheapest ways to go about marketing. And if you are the agent that prefers to have that word of mouth, this is a great way to not just rely on your clients for that experience, but you're also providing then content for those other individuals that may not have heard of you. So content marketing is a very valuable and cheap way to start to market yourself. I'm a huge fan of that's where you start.
Okay.
Before you start spending money on other areas, do what you do best. And when you sit in front of a client, you're able to sell that. But then you can utilize the content to bring them in. And, with your current book of business or your current clients, it's a way to provide value to them, again, without necessarily selling all the time.
Right. Like you said, content marketing is a little more gentle version of marketing. And it lets us get some, not just the value in there, but we're providing the educational content. We are providing an avenue for people to be able to find us as agents if they're searching, or even if they're searching for the answer to a particular question. So it's a very valuable form of marketing. Now, how do agents get access to the content library?
So super easy. Go to library.ritterim.com. That's library.ritterim.com. And if you have a Ritter login, you're good. Just log in and you're in. We tried to make this as easy and as straightforward as possible for any Ritter agent to utilize because we want you to use our stuff.
And if you're not our agent, go to ritterim.com and register so that you can utilize this content.
The registration is about 4 fields that you have to fill out. It's very quick, very easy to get access to that. But now let's get into the actual content of the content library. What kind of information do you have in there right now that agents can get access to?
So we started with 3 series. That is the Medicare Basics series, our Travel Tips series, and our Senior Travel Guides series. And we differentiate a little bit where the Travel Tips series is more generalized tips on kind of getting the most out of your vacation, whereas the Senior Travel Guides series are specific locations. And Medicare Basics is right as it says on the tin. It is the basics of Medicare.
And those are important because those are questions that I'm sure you are probably getting asked again and again. And quick fun tip when you're creating content, go for those frequently asked questions. That's your best area of content creation. Okay, so those are the types of content that we have right now. How did you decide which would be those first pieces and kind of which you were going to hold on until maybe a little bit later down the road?
Yeah, there was a lot of flipping and flopping with some of what we were planning on.
You have a lot of content.
Over 800 articles on the website, and that's just the articles. So the way that we're breaking down each pack of content is there's going to be a full article, a handout, which is like a single page of the full article, cutting it down so that it's easily one page. Then we also have a newsletter copy, which is just formatted easily so that you can take it and pop it into an HTML document or a newsletter or an email. We also have an infographic, which is a frankly beautifully designed single page that is great for sharing on social media or even just printing out and handing out. These are some of my favorite stuff. Our designer, Dee, did a fantastic job on the ones that she worked on, but all the designers did amazing work on all the stuff they've touched with this. But then also we created social media posts out of the articles because it can be really tough to organically stay active on social media. And you don't want to always be selling on social media because people don't want to interact with that.
Right.
And that's one of the strengths of content marketing is you're putting out content and in that sense marketing that people actually want to interact with.
Right.
So if you're putting these informative pieces like little tidbits or little teasers or something like that out there on social media, they'll see it and go, that's a neat fact. And at the very least, it'll ping something in their brain that they'll come back to. And then we also have full ebooks. So like for the Medicare Basics pack or series, it's a full ebook with all of the articles laid out in a single PDF file that's easy to share or print out or utilize however you see fit.
Okay.
And that gave us a lot of content to kind of play around with and a lot of choices. So when I was deciding this first, as we call it, phase one, I looked at series that I felt would teach us the most lessons moving forward. So the travel tips, and I do think it was kind of funny that we ended up having 2 travel series in there, but the travel tips was our initial kind of test run.
Okay.
And I picked that one because it touched on a lot of different topics and a lot of different types of articles. So I know we have some list style articles in there. We have straight out informative articles where it's like 3 different main points that we want to hit and then taking it from there. We have some health-focused articles. We have some Medicare articles in there. One specific Medicare article about how Medicare travels with you, which is good to know. Some hobbyist articles, so like camping tips, stuff like that. So we wanted to hit as many different things with this first pack to kind of see what we can expect with each.
Okay.
So that was a really good place to start. And then, of course, we had to have a Medicare series in the initial launch. End of the day, we are catering towards insurance agents. We got to get something out there that's going to be their expertise and more directly connect to what they're trying to sell.
Right, right.
And honestly, if you're looking for a place to start with content marketing, that's a great place to start because you can see that kind of tangential connection to what you're trying to sell.
Right.
But the other reason I chose it was because it's going to teach us the most about the compliance process.
Yes.
That's what's, I think we're going to talk more about the compliance aspects of the content library later, but going into it, we knew that was going to be probably the biggest concern with handing out this content.
Yes.
So we wanted to pick something that was Medicare topicked so that we knew what to expect.
Right. And that's something I think that agents, a lot of times after we get that initial, I don't know how to do marketing, I don't know what to do, usually the very next thing is I am afraid that I'm going to post something that isn't compliant. So that's a huge concern. And with it changing all the time, this is, in at least my opinion, it's a great way to let us do the heavy lifting of creating the content, making sure it's compliant. But then also, as you mentioned, we have all these different formats for the content that we're putting out. That's another thing that can take a lot of time away from you trying to have a social media presence or even have a marketing presence. And if we can take as much of that friction away as possible in order to make that happen and make it as easy as possible. So we've talked over some of those content pieces. Lisa, how do agents use the material that's in the content library? Like we mentioned, the handouts and the social posts. How do we use those?
So you use them in tandem with some of your other marketing tactics. Like I said before, I'm a huge fan of content marketing, but you need to mix it in. So we'll just use social media as an example. When you're utilizing the content that Jeff had mentioned, you'll also want to bring your personal touch to maybe a post before. Jeff talked about camping. What if you and your family went camping? Then you mention, hey, I have this great article about camping. And that could be relevant, to any of your clients out there. The other way to utilize the content is by answering those questions. So when you have a client who has a question about, does my Medicare, travel with me? You now have a piece that can actually answer that. So yes, you can do your little sales pitch, about, yes, this product will travel with you. This one we want to kind of look at, where are you going? Are you staying in the States or are you going out of the States?
Right.
But then we also you can utilize the article then to send to your client. That way, they know that you have their best interests in mind and you're not just talking about those products. You're talking about, hey, here's something that you can read, and hopefully the goal would be then from a content marketing standpoint is then they share it with their friends. And that's where that word of mouth comes in with content marketing. The other thing is, how to use it. Use it in your everyday. We talked about, it can be challenging to develop those templates. Well, we have them for you. If you have a newsletter, which you're on there as well, but you can always utilize the content just to stay in front of your clients. You really want to use it in tandem with some of your other marketing strategies. Like I said, email marketing, that is its own marketing effort, but what do you put in there? That's where you're going to use the content as your content marketing. So, yeah, it's really just a way to be relevant with your clients and use it in tandem with some of your other marketing efforts.
It's
Yes,
you're done.
Go for it.
And you could also use it to preempt a lot of things. Let's say you've received a lot of questions recently on a specific insurance topic. If that topic is on the content library, you could just print out the handout. You could print out 50 of them out of the printer, put them on your desk, and if people come in and say, hey, so I heard that there's such a thing as a late enrollment penalty. You can just say, hey, guess what? I've got this great handout, and it tells you all the information you need, and you just point out right there. And then you can move on to something that is more direct that you want to be talking about at that point. But you didn't just brush it off.
Right.
You gave them the information.
Right.
And one of the things I've always been really impressed with is when we've talked to agents, how well they do know their clients.
Yeah.
And that allows you to be like, hey, I do know you. So Lisa mentioned going on vacation. If they say they're going somewhere specific, you can be like, well, guess what? I'm not a travel agent, but here's this free guide on this place.
Right.
Or you're going to be flying. It's a busy time of year. Here's some tips on how you can make it more stress-free.
Right. And your clients will appreciate that you know them and that you're providing information to them. And that's where you're going to get that word of mouth.
Right. There is a phrase, I believe, that you have that goes along with the content library, and the last portion of that phrase is retain. We talk a lot about client retention, and this is a huge way to, it's not going to do client retention for you, but it's going to come into, like Jeff said, what you're already doing, what we know you're already doing, and it's kind of like the icing on the cake, really. It's that way to absolutely delight the clients that you already have the relationship with them. You're already servicing them very well. This is kind of like going that little bit of the extra mile, and everyone loves that. Now, Jeff, you had mentioned that you have about 800 different articles. I know you have a lot more topics than just what we've covered. But what type of content is your favorite kind of content to write? I feel like I have an idea of what it might be, but I would like to hear from you what you enjoy.
Yeah. So, I mean, anybody that knows me knows I love traveling, my wife and I, and we got laughs around the table.
If he didn't say traveling,
is it that obvious?
Jeff is very frequently, to quote something that I used when Jeff was out sick last week, I had to ask Chad, our marketing manager, is Jeff actually like out for the day, or is he out like in another country? Because That's just, that's what we know. But I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear that I know you well enough that I was correct.
Hey, it's a little self-reflection. I'm aware. I know.
The cool thing is, though, that a lot of the travel places, the guides, a lot of that's firsthand.
Yeah, been vetted by a person with actual on-the-ground experience.
A lot of the pictures actually in those articles were taken by me. So with some tips from the gentleman producing right now, George actually was like, okay, so make sure you get the pictures like this because they'll look like crap if they're not. But good tips all around. They do look like he made my pictures look much better. But obviously travel. I do love to go places. Getting out of your element, I feel it gives you a fresh perspective and you'll learn a lot. Not just like, oh, I'm learning a different language or a different way to cook something, but just different people. I now have friends in different countries and it's neat, but it does give you this wider perspective of things. And I really, really like that. But I mean, the other one, this might get a bit of a chuckle, is I really enjoy talking about food. So
that checks out.
Yeah. We don't have any on the content library yet, but it's absolutely coming. We had a series, I think it was Cooking for Beginners, I want to say. That is one of the very first ones that's going to be launched as part of Phase 2. That was originally going to be in Phase 1, and we're like, let's focus on Phase 1, hit that really hard, and then see what we can do. But, I mean, Cooking for Beginners is a lot of tips. I've become a better home chef, home cook. Chef feels a little stuffy. Home cook as a result of writing the website. So a lot of those tips, stuff I discovered over the years, are in those tips, and I tried to make them as useful as possible. But I mean, there's going to be recipes that I've tested. And one thing, if you've been with Ritter for a little while, you'll know we had a cookbook come out 2 years ago.
I still use it.
Lisa still uses it. There's some good ones in there. Like there's actually family recipes that I love in there. And so that's really fun to write. But I mean, another topic is history. Before recording, we were talking about how we all kind of enjoy history. And I love history. And some of the ones that I kind of did for me, you write 6 Medicare articles and you're like, well, I'm going to do something that I want to write now. And some of them were the history behind certain holidays or like spooky stories that delve into the history of a location. And those can be really fun because you get into some weird history, like really weird cultural stuff. I remember writing an article about Christmas traditions from around the world. And, we've heard about Krampus and stuff like that, but Iceland has this group of little guys called the Yule Lads that are just bizarre. I adore them because there's they steal candles or meat, like little things that you don't know how they came about with these traditions, but just chef's kiss, beautifully weird.
We love you, Iceland.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that's one of those things. If you've ever wondered why on the podcast we delve into other areas of focus, like I'll talk about movies that are coming out or streaming picks or things that are going on technology-wise. We always try to use that angle of bringing it back into having it be something interesting or beneficial for you, but it's because we're trying to provide entertainment and value in a whole slew of different areas and not just, as much as it pains me to say it, not just bore you with some of the more stringent Medicare, CMS regulations and compliance and all of that because...
Oh, we'll be talking about those.
The fact of the matter is it can get very difficult to parse through some of those. Now I guess that we have one more thing that I want to get into before we actually get into compliance. But for this one, on the content library, why a content library? Why not a different type of service?
Well, first is our content has been reviewed. It's been reviewed by our compliance as well as another compliance officer and gone through a complete approval process to make sure that information is compliant for you. The other reason why our content versus somebody else is because of the different pieces that we do have there. I'm a big proponent of again, knowing your client, knowing how they learn, so to speak.
Right.
So this is where we have those infographics. I'm a visual person. So, if you have somebody who is a very visual person, you can utilize that content. Like I said, utilizing the content from an email standpoint is just a way to stay in front of your client. But we have curated all that content for you. So while you may be able to go find it somewhere else, you don't want to be stealing their content.
Right.
You really want to make sure that, you're utilizing fresh content. And there's so much content on there for you to pick and choose from. So we have an array of different content and different means of distributing that content. The other marketing sites are providing you more so of that traditional marketing, and our content is a way for you to not necessarily, I shouldn't say not think about it, but not have to go through that writing process.
Yeah, I'll say, writing a lot of this stuff was my full-time job for 6-7 years. We did it so you don't have to.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, we did it so you don't have to. And, I just repeat, it has gone through multiple compliance officers.
Right.
So we are making sure that what you are sending to your clients and what you are downloading from us is compliant.
Right. There's a lot out there that, yes, if you want to take the time, you can go through and you can find and curate a wonderful social media feed that in all reality is its own full-time job. And the content that you might find might not necessarily be compliant. I know there's a lot of times that I will look for content for the Friday Five, and it doesn't necessarily, maybe somebody comes in and there's kind of a little bit of a bias, or there's a little bit of opinion there versus straight editorial. Those are kinds of things that you're not going to get that here. You're going to get something that is compliant. You can feel good about putting it on your social feed. There's not going to be anything political to it. It's just going to be the facts of what is actually in the legislation, the rules and the regulations, and really what you need to know and what your consumer needs to know as far as what they're going to do when they sign up and their different options when they choose their plan. Let's get into a little bit more about the compliance process. Maybe some of the things that you're going to see and that you're not going to see based on that because of those compliance rules.
How much time do you have?
Well, first and foremost,
Right.
You're not going to see premiums.
Yeah.
You're not going to see any of that. And we really do shy away from carriers and those carriers' individual products.
Right, and that's because we love all our carriers. We don't want to show preferential treatment to any of them. So we love you guys all equally.
Yes, correct. We do. But
Right.
that's really up to you as the agent, to make that decision of what you want to present to your client as they're sitting in front of you. But Jeff, go ahead.
Well, also,
Sorry.
no. But also, we don't have premiums or any costs because we want it to be evergreen. Imagine if we, for 2026, let's say, we included some price, in there, or costs in there. That handout is no longer going to be good in 2027. So instead, we're giving you the basics, the information you give to your client. That's good for, hopefully, the rest of their life. And then if they want to find out the specific costs, we might have that in the future. We might, as an individual, handout, or you can just give it to them straight out. That was a big thing with compliance, making sure stuff is as evergreen as possible, because if it's not, suddenly, after a little while, it does become non-compliant.
Right.
So that's one of the easiest ways to break compliance, basically, is not having stuff be updated. But as Lisa mentioned, everything on the content library, including the content library itself, the marketing we do, it goes through not one compliance team, but two.
Right.
And when I tell you they go through with a fine-tooth comb, us in this room, we're creatives. So there are times where we'll be in a meeting with the compliance officers and they'll be like, oh, you can't say that. A great example, one of many that we could give, but and it may seem kind of silly to us, but there are reasons behind all of these. But we can't just say Medicare. It needs to be Medicare insurance or the Medicare program or original Medicare or a specific part, because you need to specify what you're talking about.
Right.
Is just like how we can't say an agent or a Medicare agent. You have to specify that you're not affiliated with Medicare or, people aren't dumb, but they don't have the expertise in insurance. That's what they're working with the agents for.
Right. And I think probably the most important thing that I try to remember as we're going through the compliance processes and approvals is there's a lot that I think the deeper we get in the industry, we know what's going on. We know all the verbiage, we know all the jargon, all of that. I feel like compliance sometimes helps to kind of pull us back and say, wait a minute, you have to remember that for a lot of people, when they sign up for Medicare, when they're going through this initial election phase, this is the first time they have chosen from such a variety of plans. Like we're used to maybe choosing from 3 or 4 plans. Pretty much, standard. We might be choosing between a PPO and an HMO, but they have the option of they can choose an MA that might be an HMO. It might be a PPO. They could choose to stay on Original Medicare. They could choose to add a MedSup or not. There's so many different options, and it's important to give the most accurate information that we can in order to help them make really the best choice possible. So we do love and appreciate our compliance.
Absolutely.
officers.
I mean, so my wife's grandfather lives next door to us and is down for dinner every night. He's going to be 90 this year. And I've helped him with his Medicare in the past. And
Right.
it's really when I've been writing these articles or dealing with our compliance. And I've had articles where they just said straight up, no, you can't do that. And whenever I kind of get a little frustrated, I think, well, this is to protect people like Pap. It's stuff like that. And it really is an attitude that pervades a lot of the content, specifically the Medicare content. Both my parents are on Medicare now. We got the Pap. It's, will this help them or will this
Right.
confuse them? And if it will confuse them, how can we make it so that it won't?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't hurt to run it by them and see
Oh.
if they understand it because they're the ideal audience.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Yep, that's your target audience right there.
Yes.
Yeah. And I do want to say quickly, we do have a phenomenal compliance team here at Ritter. And of
we
course,
do.
the other team as well. But I just want to shout out to our in-house team because you never want to be the bad guy, but they're very good at being the bad guys.
Right.
You
right.
know.
Yeah.
It-
Marketing has a great relationship with our compliance team, which is not
Yes.
always the case.
no,
No.
we're very lucky.
Yes,
Right,
but
right.
we know they're trying to do their job to not only protect us as as the creatives, but also protect you guys.
Right. So we've gone over a little bit about what's available right now. We touched a little bit on what might be coming soon, but what is next for the content library?
We're hoping to have more out as they become available and go through the process. We're going to log them on the website and pretty regularly update it. So it is going to be worth checking back fairly regularly.
Right. Bookmark it. What is that URL again?
Library.ritterim.com.
And if you're not a Ritter agent, register at ritterim.com.
Alrighty. Well, Jeff, Lisa, thank you both so much for being here. Is
My
there
pleasure.
anything else that you would like to touch on before we end this here today?
I mean, thank you for having us in here to
Yes,
talk
thank
about
you.
this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We will certainly be keeping you guys in the loop as far as when there are updates available in the content library. And Jeff, since you did such a fantastic job of putting on your radio announcer voice and saying that URL, can you hit us with that URL one more time?
Library.ritterim.com.
Alrighty. Well, thank you both so much for being here. And that's all we've got for this episode.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I just want to say thank you again so much to Lisa Lynch and Jeff Snyder for the interview. Couple of things mentioned in there that I want to touch on again. For one, the website is library.ritterim.com, and we will have the link in our episode notes. Also, in the time since our original interview, the content library has published quite a few additional content packets. In addition to the titles Jeff mentioned, there's Mastering Medicare Insurance Coverage, Cooking for Beginners, Spooky Spots for Halloween, and A Happy, Healthy Christmas. And there are plenty more on the way as well. We try to have Jeff on the show each time the content library comes out with a new packet. Just one of the many reasons to make sure that you are following along with our show. Also, in the notes, you'll find the link to register with Ritter Insurance Marketing. You do need to have that registration complete in order to access the content library. It's a super quick registration, and then you can get into all that content and check out the resources that Jeff, Dee, and the rest of our team have put together for you. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen today. Keep an eye out for our next content library episode with Jeff, coming to this feed sooner rather than later. We will see you next episode. The Agent Survival Guide podcast is a production of Ritter Insurance Marketing, an integrity company. Special thanks to Lisa Lynch and Jeff Snyder for the interview. Recording and production by me, Sarah Ruppel. Podcast design by Urban Rivera. Like what you hear? Support the show by following along where you get your podcasts.